All right. So, good evening, one and all present here. I welcome you again to the next session of our conference. This session, session 7, is titled "The Imploding Garrison State of Pakistan and Security Implications for India." This session, in this session, it is my honor to introduce the esteemed participants: Lieutenant General C.A. Krishnan, Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma, Lieutenant General Shokin Chauhan, Dr. Tara Karta, Colonel Ram Athavale, and Neeraj Singh Manhas. The session will be chaired by Lieutenant General C.A. Krishnan. Lieutenant General is a former Deputy Chief of Army and a former member of the Armed Forces Tribunal, a postgraduate in Defense Studies and MPhil in Strategic Affairs and Defense Management. He is also a holder of a postgraduate diploma in Human Rights Law from NLSIU, Bangalore, and a postgraduate diploma in journalism. The key speakers for today's sessions are Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma, who was commissioned in Gorkha Rifles in 1977 and had a career in Army spanning over 40 years. He has had extensive operational experience in Jammu and Kashmir, Northeast, and on the western borders. He has trained the Botswana Army for 3 years in Africa and attended the National War College at Abuja, Nigeria. Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma attended the NDC at New Delhi. He was also a research fellow at IDSA and has received a PhD in defense studies. General Rakesh Sharma commanded the Fire and Fury Corps in Ladakh, facing both Pakistan and China. He was also the Adjutant General responsible for the human resource management of the Indian Army. He is a regular participant in seminars, lectures in various institutions, and regularly writes for newspapers, military journals, and contributes chapters in edited books. He currently holds General Bipin Rawat's Chair of Excellence at USI New Delhi. Our next speaker is Lieutenant General Shokin Chauhan. General Chauhan was the chairman of the Ceasefire Monitoring Group, Nagaland, and Northeast India in August 2018. He was the Director General of Assam Rifles, India's oldest and largest paramilitary force. He has had he has held several key appointments during his long career in the army. He served at the apex level in the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Home Counterinsurgency, Counterterrorism, Border Guarding, and Human Resource Management. He also has vast experience in military diplomacy since he was the defense attaché in the Indian Embassy in Nepal for 3.5 years, from 2004 to 2007. General Chauhan also holds a PhD in International Relations and Defense Studies from the Punjab University, Chandigarh. His latest book is on the strategic relations between India and Nepal. He also regularly contributes to articles and columns in various scholarly magazines and is a constant invitee and participant or speaker at seminars and leadership forums. For the next speaker, we have Dr. Tara Karta, the Director, Research and Academics at the Center for Land Warfare Studies. She works on the neighborhood and great power politics and also is involved in clause reaching out to other institutions. Previously, she was Senior Jennings Randolph Fellow at the United States Institute of Peace. She served at the National Security Council Secretariat, Government of India, during the tenure of 5 national security advisors. In government, her focus was primarily on Afghanistan and Pakistan, terrorism in the neighborhood, and a watching brief on the outflow of this radicalism within India. Colonel Dr. Ram Athavale is our next speaker. He's a specialist in CBRN security, risk mitigation, and incident management with more than 2 decades of domain experience. He is an 81 batch veteran Armored Corps officer. He has commanded an armored regiment during Operation Parakram. He was last posted as Director CBRN at the Directorate of Perspective Planning, Army Headquarters. Colonel Athavale has been a key advisor to the Government of India, Ministry of Defense and Ministry of Home Affairs on CBRN security and incident management. He was also appointed as a key CBRN expert for the European Union CBRN Risk Mitigation Centers of Excellence Initiative. He was deployed in the Eastern and Central Africa region from September 2015 to September 2018. He functions as honorary professor or adjunct faculty and guest faculty for CBRN security and risk mitigation subjects at select Indian and overseas universities. He has authored a pioneer book on CBRN incident management in India titled Toxic Portents. Our final speaker for this session is Neeraj Singh Manhas. Neeraj Singh Manhas serves as the Special Advisor for South Asia at the Parley Policy Initiative, Republic of Korea, and is a subject matter expert at the Center for Joint Warfare Studies, Ministry of Defense for Government of India. He is also affiliated as a non-resident visiting senior scholar at the Center for National Security Studies and an editorial board member for World Water Policy Journal. His expertise has been recognized by prominent and international media outlets such as the Financial Times, BBC World, Al Kahira News, and Taiwan Plus News. Neeraj previously served as the Director of Research at the Indo Pacific Consortium at Raisana House, New Delhi. He has authored and edited 6 books, and his research interests include India China border issues, transboundary rivers, water security in South Asia, climate security, and defense studies. His last edited book, analyzing the current Afghan context, was published in 2023. Neeraj's writings have been featured by renowned institutions all over the world. And with this, I hand over the floor to our session chair, General C.A. Krishnan. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Priyanshu. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, loud and clear.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Priyanshu, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure being here as part of this event, and I must thank Mr. Yeshasarya and the Indic Research Forum, especially for this opportunity. And I must say, we are indeed fortunate to have such an esteemed set of panelists for this session. We have, as Priyanshu mentioned, Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma, Lieutenant General Shokin Chauhan, Dr. Tara Karta, Colonel Ram Athavale, and Mr. Neeraj Singh Manhas. Possibly Dr. Tara Karta may join us later, hopefully. Now, all of them will be speaking to us on various dimensions of the topic for this session, which is the imploding garrison state of Pakistan and security implications for India. It's maybe by default, but it's only appropriate that we are discussing this topic in the immediate aftermath of the most unfortunate and barbaric Islamic terrorist attack that originated from Pakistan, and it was inflicted in our state of Jammu and Kashmir. Ladies and gentlemen, let me in the next 10 minutes or so give you a very brief, broad, very generic backdrop for the session. I will try and avoid treading on to the aspects that our panelists would be covering. Therefore, I will try and be generic. We have time till 8:30 p.m. We'll try and fit in some questions at the end of the session. And I will request the panelists to try and restrict themselves within the time indicated by the organizers for us. Now, coming on to the session proper, ladies and gentlemen, it is 78 years since Pakistan came into existence, as you all are very well aware of. But even today, after 78 years as an independent country, Pakistan and its people do not enjoy political freedom or virtues of a true democracy. Pakistani political leaders and the population in general actually are, in fact, still waging a seemingly never-ending struggle for freedom. Freedom from its own army, the Pakistan Army. Now, across the 86th anniversary of Pakistan Day, which fell on the 23rd of March, Pakistan finds itself in a quagmire politically, economically, ideologically, culturally, with multiple secessionist movements within its territory, and finds itself at the rock bottom global image. Now, how deep this turmoil is and how desperate the country and its army in particular are can be gauged from the recent infamous utterances of the Pak Army Chief. I'm sure you all are aware of what he said. Just as an aside, in the context of what Asim Munir had said, I am reminded of a question that was asked to me by a student during a very recent university seminar in Bangalore. And the basis of his question was Pakistan was carved out purely on the basis of religion as an exclusive homeland for the Muslims of undivided India. But when the exclusive homeland was created, 40% of the then 95 million Indian Muslims chose India as their homeland. They stayed back in India rather than go to the newly created exclusive homeland. And based on this, his question was firstly, why was an exclusive homeland carved out only for one religious group? And secondly, even if it was done, why was it done without putting a permanent closure to the claim for special rights and status for members of the same group who chose to stay back in India? Now, let me move away from that very, very uncomfortable question and get back to Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen. I recollected that question which was asked to me only to flag an issue which will keep coming up again and again every time there is an unfortunate incident, something like what happened in J&K in the Pahalgam. Now, Pakistan suffers from an acute India phobia. Despite the huge difference in economic and developmental indicators, it wants to be counted at par with India, if not above India. But to its dismay, unfortunately, Pakistan is today bracketed with Afghanistan and not India. In its continuing struggle for an identity, Pakistan has moved from Jinnah's professed dream of a secular democracy. It's quite surprising that Jinnah actually professed that we should have a secular democracy. So from that dream of Jinnah to a garrison state and Islamic theocracy, that's what Pakistan has actually traveled during the last 78 years. And during this process of its journey from what Jinnah professed and what it is today, the Pak army has actually grown deep roots in the governance of Pakistan. Pak army has evolved a very fine, refined proxy system to control the government and every institution of governance. Now, the Pak army, as most of you would know, is not just into governance of the country. It also runs a multi-billion-dollar private sector business empire with footprints across sectors, from real estate to shopping malls to educational institutions, stud farms, cement, to even sectors like footwear, petrol pumps, and reportedly even spas. And the governance report card of the Garrison state is very revealing. What the expertise that the Garrison state has brought and gifted to Pakistan. Just to give you a glimpse, you will be surprised to know, or at least for those who may not have, dwelt or studied this aspect, the per capita GDP of Pakistan in 1991 was $380. The per capita GDP in 1991 in nominal terms, which incidentally was higher than China's in 1991, which was $333. And if you take India, it was significantly higher than India's. Pakistan said 380, India's was just $305. Now that was 1991. If you fast forward to 2024, in PPP terms, the GDP today of Pakistan is just about $6,800. The GDP per capita in PPP terms. India has jumped to almost $12,000 and China has, I must say, rocketed to almost $20,000. And if you consider the GDP of the country in nominal terms, Pakistan's GDP is struggling at a low of $274 billion compared to India's, which is about $4.3 trillion. Now, if you take the market capitalization of India, it is about it's over $5 trillion as on date. And in comparisons, the market cap of Pakistan is just about $50 billion. And incidentally, just to get the comparisons, more meaningful, the Tata Group's market cap is more than $400 billion. That's Tata Group alone. The market cap is about 8 times the market cap of Pakistan. So that should give you a picture about where Pakistan is, where India is, despite Pakistan wanting to always be compared with India. So that gives you the a very overall view of the Garrison model's report card. And so, in effect, I think it's time that somebody told the Pakistani population that this is what the Garrison model has delivered in all over 6 decades that it has been a garrison country out of the 78 years of its existence. Now, as far as Pakistan Army is concerned, if the military threat from India disappears, Pakistan Army's relevance will be lost. Now, this is not acceptable to the Pak Army. That's a fact which I think is very, very clear by now. Therefore, the bottom line is, it is unrealistic to visualize the garrison state of Pakistan that can live in harmony with India. Now, Asim Munir, ladies and gentlemen, was only reiterating this stark truth to his countrymen and women just the other day. Beyond that, Pakistan is and will remain the Islamic terror hub of the world. Being in our immediate neighborhood, this is a problem that needs to be addressed, that concerns us directly. Pakistan is without doubt the biggest hindrance to J&K's development and its true integration with the rest of the country. Pak economy shows no signs of recovery. And there is nothing, even in the distant past, which gives hope that the Pak army, at least after a few years, will come out of the quagmire that it is in today. There is nothing, no signs visible at all in the horizon. Pakistan faces serious threats of breaking up, with problems in Balochistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and even along the Durand line. Pak, without doubt, will remain a military puppet, a logistics base, and a transit geography for China. This has significant strategic implications for us again. Pakistan's nuisance value in international forums will remain. I think that's a minor problem which we can easily contend with. We have tackled it without any problem. And finally, very importantly, Pakistan will remain a potential rogue, a nuclear-capable global rogue. Now, if that is what we see on the windscreen when we look at Pakistan, what should India do? As peaceful relations with India is perceived to be contrary to its interest by the Pak army, I think it's futile to say that stable Pakistan is in India's interest. So let us stop facilitating a stable Pakistan and saying that a stable Pakistan is in India's interest. I firmly believe, ladies and gentlemen, that it is not so. For the simple reason that we know the mindset of Pak army. Beyond that, should India assist in Pakistan's breakup? Maybe yes. After all, human rights and the cause of the Baluch people and Pashtuns of KPK deserves as much support, if not more, than what Pakistan has been extending into Kashmir. So what should be the interim and final shape of the splintering parts of Pakistan? I think that is something which we can let them decide for themselves. But we need to encourage serious and open discussion on this and should not be shying away from discussing how and in what shape and in how many parts Pakistan should be splintering into. Now, finally, a word about Pakistan's nuclear weapons and its nuclear capability. Now, this is indeed a major concern, but since this is as much a concern for rest of the world as it is for India, we should actively seek to dismantle and dispose of Pakistan's nuclear capability with in conjunction with rest of the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's a very brief background opener for the session. And with that as the opener, let me now request Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma. General Rakesh would be telling us about the evolution in Pakistan's war strategy against India. Over to you, Rakesh.
Thank you, sir. And you don't leave anybody to say anything after you have presented, and I've suffered in life like this. Okay. Thank you very much, sir. I also wish to join.
I must say, I must interrupt and say you haven't changed a bit. You are still at your, the light-hearted best. Always have a joke for every occasion. Over to you, Rajesh.
Thank you. I also join General Krishnan to thank the organizers, Intake Researchers Forum, and for inviting us for this very timely and very well planned, as if you knew something is going to happen in Pahalgam, and so you organized it in these 2 days. So it's a very important session to be spoken about, and I thank you for inviting me. Now, military strategy or war strategy over the years is what is the subject given to me. Let me start with some kind of causational factors over last 8 odd decades in Pakistan armed forces life, which mattered maximum. One is that they had a very traumatic experience of 1947 when Pakistan Army got formed. A portion of coming up from India, and the officer class was weak and not existent, and the higher command was just not there. There were financial problems, so they had a very traumatic experience of raising the Pak Army, and the Pak Army was raised in 1947. The second major shock that they got was in 1971 when Bangladesh got separated out and became East Pakistan got separated out. Bangladesh became a country by themselves. So that was a great traumatic shock. 93,000 odd prisoners in India, and they had to bend low for the Shimla Agreement, which they are now trying to abrogate in 1972. So that was a very nasty experience for Pakistan. The third major experience for Pakistan Army was 1974 when we tested a so-called peaceful nuclear device. It jolted them out of the reverie, and they found India has become the 6th country in the global community of nations with the nuclear power, and which hurt them tremendously. Then, of course, the 80s period when Pakistan got intimately involved in General Ziaul Haq times in Islamization of the Pak Army done by General Ziaul Haq, and also by the Afghanistan, where a whole lot of weapons came into Pakistan and a whole lot of training being carried out to Taliban, which was raised in Pakistan to combat the Russians. And so that was another experience here. And the last part I wish to say is the question of last 20-25 years, when Pakistan suddenly found India has taken off. And then Krishnan mentioned about the differentials that we've had in GDP and economic growth earlier, in which Pakistan was actually leading in some times of the earlier times. But subsequently, when the Pakistan found that we have taken off in 1995 and we had no stopping us, and now as they continue to rise up, the fifth major issue is the rise of India and the tremendous potential that India is showing, which becomes a very great causative factor in the psychology of Pakistan military hierarchy. Now, having said that, let me talk about 5 foundational factors about Pakistan armed forces. One is, and it's already been spoken about, is the issue of national identity, the pehchan of that country as a nation. Now, we boast about 5,000 years of history, and we say, okay, we have proven 5,000 years of history in India. But Pakistan, despite the fact that they start counting sometime when the first Muslim came up from Saudi Arabia and landed on saying that Pakistan was raised in the 6th, 7th century or started, which is all bakwas. And even 1930, when Iqbal coined the word Pakistan, which is just coinage of a word, but Pakistan was actually raised in 1947, maybe in minds of people prior to that. So that identity as a nation, and despite the fact that they have only 4 states, the 4 states compatibility is an issue even today, and the divide along the Indus is total. So the states on the west of Indus, that's Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, have been actually milked away by Pakistan for feeding largely Punjab province and also Sindh. So that there is no pehchan, there is no common identity that Pakistan has been able to make, and that's a very significant part, because this identity is honed in as a Pakistan identity is anti-Indianism or Jammu and Kashmir. When anti-Indianism dies and J&K issue is finished, then Pakistan doesn't have a foundation to stand on. Very major issue in their issue. Second is the issue of there is continental quest which started in 1947 of having a parity and a step beyond India. Now, as a nation, it doesn't have the kind of resources that India has got and kind of push that India has been able to bring about. But there is always a competition with India. Everything is counted as equal in economy, power structures. And this continental quest for parity actually pulls the country down, because they tend to invest into wrong avenues, and that causes great amount of hassle here. Third is that it is driven into the society is that India is vengeful. India wants to take a revenge for everything. So the vengeful India, which is driven into the masses, actually leads to that issue of having a strategic depth, which they talked about Afghanistan earlier, saying that there is a vengeful India which will come and take revenge from us. So we need to have a strategic depth. So the vengeful India is always in mindful, and it is driven home to the public. Fourth is that the Pathans, especially in Punjabis in Pakistan, felt that they were the martial race. So the martial race concept came up in the British times, 18th century, but finally died away, and there is no concept. And the Indian Army has forgotten that there was even ever a concept of martial races, because there are regiments and battalions and areas and regions which were not martial races, who have proven their worth more soundly in all wars and subsequently later. So you can't say there is a martial race. But Pakistan still believes that the Muslims are a martial race. They have history, such one, and Pathans and Punjabis are the martial race, and it is taught across to their schools and colleges, saying Hindus are weak, which becomes part and parcel of the development of Pakistan Armed Forces. And the last foundational issue is that it is also driven home that Islam is in danger. And for starting from Lashkar invasion, when Lashkars were actually brought about in the 1947, saying Islam is in danger with India coming up here, and the Islam people in Kashmir will suffer. So right from those days, Islam is in danger, has been spoken about, and it causes a major mindset in Pakistan, and all this while, especially in the 9 years of General Zia, when he came up, he brought about Islam in a very big way. Now I come to the issue of the war strategies. Now, see, it has been evolving, and let's talk about an era pre-1971 and the era post-1971. In the era pre-1971, this issue of Hindus being weak and the Muslims being stronger and the Pathans being stronger, there was a desire on the Pakistani side to be more and more on larger offensives, and they thought they would succeed in offensives. And hum Delhi chalenge, those kind of phenomena was spoken about, capture of Delhi and flag on Red Fort of India. So there was an offensiveness, strong offensiveness in the thought process. So when we say, and when 62 happened, and it came to light that the Chinese army bested India, so that thought process in 1965 with Gibraltar earlier, and later on in the war itself, the Pakistan army, you see, they tried the double pincer of an offensive which came across from Khemkaran on one side and Dera Baba Nanak on the other side, and joining up together at Byas. Huge pincer that was being evolved across there, or that the Indian armed forces will disintegrate totally and they will be able to capture the city of Amritsar. And it's also the offensive that came across from Cham and Bhimbar, Cham, and those areas to cut across the road to J&K towards Jauria, Aknur. And it was, so, Pakistan Army's own mindset forced them to believe that 1965 was the right time for carrying out major offensives across into India, and India will cut off J&K and they will be able to take on the city of Amritsar, and India will have difficult times. And of course, the Air Force. Pakistan is always prided in its Air Force. They always prove by statistics that they are the victors of all wars. So when they count statistics of number of aircraft down, which is a dubious way of counting as to who was victor and who was a loser, Pakistan Air Force tries to prove that they were the victors, not knowing that it should be measured by number of sorties that a force has been able to generate and kind of offensives that we've been able to carry out. But Pakistan Air Force says we had lesser number of aircraft down in 65 and in 71 than in the comparison to Indian Air Force. So it was a offensiveness that came up in 1971. We come to post 71, where Pakistan Army got hit and hit badly. Two of these statements made by Bhutto after the war, actually became the basis of Pakistan Army's mindset subsequently. We all know about those two statements. One is that Pakistan will eat grass, but we will make our own atom bomb. This was said after 1974, where there was a clear direction laid down by Bhutto, saying that despite having suffered the war and so many prisoners of war, but they said, okay, we will make the bomb. And they made a one-point agenda of making Pakistan as a nuclear weapon state. That came up after 71, when they thought that if they had the bomb, they would have been able to do much more in the war previously and hereafter. The second major statement made by Bhutto is that we will bleed India by 1,000 cuts. The bleed India by 1,000 cuts is what they have been following subsequently, Ziaul Haq time, and then consequently after 1990, when there was a withdrawal of Russians from Afghanistan, and they had surfeit of militants and terrorists available and weaponry available left over by the CIA, and they had to utilize it somewhere. So bleed India by 1,000 cuts is the philosophy they started subsequently, built it up by 95, 96 by pushing in foreign terrorists into J&K, and continued hereafter. So their philosophy subsequently after 1971 is largely based on these issues. There is also a reciprocal effect of Indian doctrines that came up. And we must not, talk about Pakistan military strategies and doctrines without talking is what was India talking at that time. Because without Indian thought processes, Pakistan becomes kind of irrelevant. I come to the Sundarji doctrine of 1980s, which is one of the finest ways of proving India was reaching as a level. 80s, as most of us will recollect, was a mechanized era when the mechanized infantry was raised, and the armored corps came up, the mech forces were found up, and General Sundarji came up with a doctrine of offensive war strategy. 7 corps on the Western Front, total offensive war strategy tried out in brass tacks 1, 2, 3, 4, and it was such a proactive kind of thought process is to destroy Pakistan's center of gravity. At one time, it was stated that we will divide Pakistan into two by the kind of force level that we've been able to generate in 80s and later 80s, and push across into Pakistan. So the Sundarji doctrine gave a kick up the thinking processes in Pakistan, saying that, okay, how do we respond to such kind of major conventional force preponderance that it was being shown? Of course, part of these 7 corps that are located were also in defensive, but the thought process that Sundarji was propounding was largely offensive doctrine. So Pakistan army woke up to this reality of 1971, sorry, 80s, saying that there is, and there that time they were also intimately involved into Afghanistan. Of course, India had also been involved into IPKF and the Punjab insurgency. So that's the time when Ziaul Haq found that 1,000 cuts was a better strategy instead of fighting Indians, because they thought the march of Indian forces have been rising up. So they brought the Punjab insurgency into fore by 82, 83, and subsequently till 92. For 10 odd years, Punjab insurgency was rampant, and Pakistan was able to train and push across terrorists into Punjab and actually cause immense amount of pull back into Pakistan Indian armed forces into some kind of defensive formations. And by the time this Punjab insurgency happened, Afghanistan had finished, and Pakistan's war strategy shifted towards creating the infrastructure for 1,000 cuts into JNK. By 88, 89, they had turned the infrastructure of Afghanistan towards India, and generated that kind of force levels in matters of terrorism to start at 88, 89. So while Punjab was putting back and become normalized, the change over the war strategy towards JNK, and that was their response to the rising offensiveness of Indian strategy that came up in General Sundarji's times and subsequently. Thereafter comes the Kargil War. Now, the connotation of line of control is well known to us, and it was holders, keepers. The theory of Hindus being weak and unable to perform credibly in wars of this kind. In actually, they were able to launch the second 71 also an offensive into Chamjaudia, like they did in 65, and we were ill prepared for it. So they thought they could succeed in this, and the thought process, though the thought of this was 10 years older. It started in Benazir Bhutto's time in 88, 89 to do a Kargil, and thereby, stop the march of India in Siachen Glacier. So in between 1984, we did the quick march and occupied Siachen Glacier, an area which was ill-defined in the Shimla conference. So Siachen Glacier, and Shokin Chauhan, who sits with me, my good friend, was the pioneer to land up in Siachen at that time. So subsequently, they thought that they could deny Indian forces sustenance of Siachen Glacier by occupying Kargil Heights. The plan took 10 years to mature. It took a seasonable time, and again, Shokin has commanded that 8th division here. So the concept of limited war. Now, this limited war, as it started in Indian also, the chief of Indian Army also said, yeah, okay, this is an era of limited war because we just nuclearized. Both countries are nuclearized in 1998, and we had tested. So we both did not have delivery means, but we had some amount of weaponry, nuclear weaponry available with us. And there is possible of having a war, a conventional war, a limited war of a kind under the nuclear overhang is what came up in 1999. And we also propounded the same theory, saying limited war is possible. We pushed the issue of line of control being holders, keepers. That theology, which started in Shimla Agreement, died away in 1999, where we refused to accept the incursions that have taken place into Kargil, and at great cost to ourselves, we were able to recapture those busy heights of Kargil and push the Pakistanis behind. It also came to light that at certain time, international situation was veering in favor of India because our economic situation had looked up starting in 91. And by the time it came to Prime Minister Bajpayee's time, we were already in the march. We were at that time half of Chinese economy, $500 billion GDP by 2000, while the Chinese were 1 trillion economy. Pakistanis were nowhere around. So we had already taken the strides into this end, and we come to 2001. 2001 becomes a critical year in the history of India, Indian military and Pakistan military, because of the terrorist action being carried out in the parliament and of Prakram. where we found that there were obvious weaknesses in Indian military doctrine in mobilization of forces and taking action across on the borders and lead on to the offensive. That changeover of 2001 or 2002, which is called Op Parakram, led us, India, to a theory of cold start, where, when we were younger, we used to say offensives by line of the march. But here the armies were going into offensive on line of the march in a cold start theory, which later on we called proactive operations. But the cold start theory of India, which came up in 2003, 2004, and subsequently was tried into 6 exercises, started in 2005, Sangyet Shakti, and right up to 2012. Large number of exercises, major exercises were held on India on the Western Front, where this cold start theory with IBGs, the integrated battle groups launching offensives earlier and pushed in by the strike force later on, was actually tried out. The Pakistan Armed Forces found that this was the most difficult period of their times. This is between 2004 and 2010-12. And they came up with this tactical nuclear weapons. And thereafter, when 2008 happened, early in 2001, it was felt by the Pakistanis that they have been able to deter India by the thought process of nuclear weapons. I'll be finishing in 2 minutes, sir. By the thought process of nuclear weapons, and especially the tactical nuclear weapons or non-strategic nuclear weapons, namely Nasr, which is there they call it, and that was the Hataf 9, as also it's been called, the tactical nuclear weapons, and they went and broadcast it. Now, nuclear weapons have value only if other adversary knows. It's also when the adversary knows the will and the intent of using it. Now, to prove the will and intent, that time Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif first time went across to United States and the Assembly and said, we are conventionally inferior to India. India has got conventional forces in substantial numbers. Therefore, we will use nuclear weapon to protect our country. This was stated at that time. Now, this has led to thinking processes subsequently, because the message was being conveyed by a politician. Of course, it was said earlier by the SPD boss, Khalid Kidwai and others. But when the Prime Minister goes, and he also spoke in Heritage Foundation in Washington, saying a similar remark, saying we will use nuclear weapons in case India launches its conventional superiority. That is the issue which was brought to fore, while internally in the armed forces, we said, let's call their bluff. And the bluff has been called in Kargil and many times subsequently in Balakot or also in surgical strikes. But it is a message that they keep addressing to the Indian polity. It is meant for the politicians to take notice of the fact that there are tactical nuclear devices available, despite the fact that India's nuclear doctrine talks about a massive response. So as we proceeded over in the course of 5 to 7 years, the Pakistanis have found that 1,000 cuts continues across into J&K. They control the tap, allow the tap to increase at one time and reduce at subsequent time, depending on what is the situation there. When Uri happens or Nagrota happens, you can actually recount it's not only the case of some visiting dignitary to India. It's also a case of the internal situation becomes so dire and problematic that they have to actually answer to their call of the nation by revisiting the J&K issue and causing a major terrorist attack into India. It relates itself to what's happened into Baluch insurgencies earlier, largely Baluch insurgencies, what's happened across into Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. If they have a school being hit, they will obviously rise something across into J&K. So it's a systemic in which Pakistan Army keeps believing that they have to keep the pot boiling in J&K if they want to retain their primacy as the foremost organization in Pakistan, and they continue to control, as General Krishnan has rightly pointed out. And to do that, J&K has to be revisited. In the course of last few months, Pakistan Army has suffered tremendously General Munir's tenure has been bad. His own internal dissensions within his own army have been often reported. There are many generals and colonels sacked in the course of his tenure, which is not normal in Pakistan. And having said that, they have to relate. So what has happened in Balochistan over the last 3 months ought to be reflected into the statement that he made recently, and it was resulted in what happened in Pahalgam recently. I will end by saying that Pakistan military's war strategy must be related to their typology of military modernization. What are they purchasing? What are they having their creating their forces, and how are they deploying themselves? So it's obvious that Pakistan armed forces have now taken on into a largely defensive offensive strategy along the borders, where the defenses are held and there are large reserves held in defensive formations to thwart the Indian offensive strategy. And their reserves, because they know they will not be able to pull back the major forces deployed in on the Durand line and in Balochistan. Therefore, they have brought frontier corps deploying in defenses along the obstacle lines here, and thereby creating the regular reserves in the forward tier, so that they don't have to immediately bank on getting the corps which are deployed on the western side. So, and their modernization is related to, and what they're procuring from, say, Turkey or from China, is all related to modern warfare of using drones, of missiles, large number of missiles, electronic warfare, which they are selling across to the Middle East countries, and using AVACs and getting the best of aircraft from the China thing. So there is a kind of standoffness which is coming up into the military modernization of Pakistan Army. It's not been related to any doctrine that has come out, but what they have procured gives a rise to a fact that they are wanting to fight a standoff war, a beyond visual range war in future, and their modernization largely relates to it. You see, I draw your attention to what happened to Iran last year, when Pakistan army was hit by an Iranian missile, two of them. They immediately were able to push across within 1 day loitering ammunition, which we are now creating a loitering ammunition range. Last week we inaugurated it. But they already had loitering ammunition which was pushed across to Sistan, Balochistan province of Pakistan, of Iran, and also launched missile in no time. So it gives rise to a feeling, and they managed to do excellent electronic warfare against the Indian Air Force in Operation Swift Resort after Balakot. So their modernization gives a feeling that they want to fight a different kind of war than wanting to fight a war on the borders. I'll end here, sir, and if there are issues here, I'll take it on during the question answer sessions.
Thank you very much, Rakesh. I think it's very, very difficult topic to have covered in the time that was given, and you've done a wonderful job of it. You really traced the evolution of Pak war strategy and where they are, flagging all the critical issues. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have General Shokin Chauhan now. He'll be speaking on, he is someone who's been on all types of borders, whether it is LC, IB, in the Northeast. I don't think you'll find a better combination to tell us about the subject that he is going to talk about. That is cross-border infiltration, border security, Pak-Bangla Nexus, and India's border management approach. Over to you, Shokin.
Thank you, sir. It's always such a treat to speak in this forum. I'm indeed extremely happy to have you as the moderator, sir. And of course, following General Rakesh Sharma is always a challenge, because there is a question of the immense amount of knowledge that he brings to the table every time he speaks. The subject, as you said, for me, is a challenging one. To speak on the borders between India, the borders between the Indian and Bangladesh borders, the Indian and Pakistan borders, and the nexus that exists between the Bangladesh army now, the Pakistanis, the Chinese, the Myanmar, Nepal, all these borders actually are difficult borders. And let me try and explain how. If you just look at the map of India, uh, and it's very important to keep seeing this map to tell you how and where the threat actually emanates to the Indian subcontinent or to the Indian nation state. Uh, in the extreme north and northeast, we have China, uh, which has occupied Tibet and occupies and also has been able to bring a fairly large amount of forces onto the Indian borders in the north and the northeast, in Arunachal as well as in eastern Ladakh. As Jam Rakesh mentioned, I used to be the commander in eastern Ladakh, commanding 70 Brigade, and I've had a fair amount of experience dealing with the PLA along these largely unheld borders, but important borders. You turn further west, you have a very long border with Pakistan, extremely important, but also fully fenced. But however, especially the border as far as Kashmir is concerned, though we have fenced it and though we do cover the important gaps, there's an important situation here is that every fence, every obstacle is actually crossable. Very often, sir, I get messages from all my friends who are not into the armed forces to say, how do you allow these Pakistanis with weapons to come in? Why aren't you stopping them at the border? How is it possible that so many people can come in and create mayhem in the country? So, though we have the Indo-Pakistan border fenced, uh, like I said, despite all the fencing, despite all the various kinds of sensors that exist there, despite the fact that we hold important ground, despite the fact that we cover the fence with troops, it is still important to know that individuals can get through from anywhere. So that's the Pakistan border, that it is heavily fenced, heavily protected, but still people get inside one way or the other. And though, like, say that we've been able to prevent 99.9% of the infiltration along the borders. But it's that 0.01% that actually gets through and creates this mayhem inside. You go to the other side, you go to the eastern side, we have Bangladesh. Bangladesh also has a very, very long border with India. And we're in the process of fully covering it. Though in Bangladesh, the Indo-Bangladesh border, it is the BSF that actually holds the border, and the Indian Army is echeloned behind to help the BSF in case some problem happens. You go further northeast, you have the Indo-Myanmar border, almost 1,700 plus kilometers. It's not been fenced. Just about 5 to 75 kilometers have been fenced till now. The balance, as the Home Ministry is trying to fence this border, the Assam Rifles looked after this particular border. But we have populations along these borders that are similar in tribal affiliations. So if you take the 350, 400 odd kilometers between Mizoram and India, you have Mizoram and Myanmar, but the tribes on the Mizoram side and as well as the Myanmar side are the Chin tribes who are related to each other, and they for generations have been crossing over from one end to the other. And no one is able to prevent this crossing over simply because, one, we don't have the amount of forces, and two, the local population is very deeply ingrained with each other, and they're not able to stop this local infiltration. Similarly, the issue with Nagaland, you have Eastern Nagaland. Those are the Konyaks. The Konyaks also live on the other side of Myanmar, and this population also has been traditionally moving up and down. Even along the Manipur side or along the Arunachal flight, there has always been this tradition of camps of insurgents on one side and operating in the Indian side. And then you come to the totally unsecured border between India and Nepal. We are aware that the Special Services Bureau occupies the borders. However, the borders are absolutely open and are crossable all over. And of course, we permit the Nepalese people to cross into India and to work in India and have the same privileges as any Indian citizens there. So we have, let me again go through the whole thing. We have Bangladesh, we have Nepal, we have Bhutan, we have Pakistan, we have Tibet that is now occupied by China. We have Sri Lanka, but it is held by the Smallpox Straits, which is about 20 odd kilometers of the sea. And along all these porous borders, people can cross in. And what the Pakistani terrorists are doing is that they've been utilizing these crossing points to come inside from our more populated areas, to come inside, come into Kashmir, stay as sleeper cells, and then try and hit us. So at every point when we look at how do we protect ourselves, and that's the main thing that people keep telling me, how are you allowing the Pakistanis to come in? The main issue, as far as the Pakistan is concerned, is that they don't really come through the Indo-Pakistan border. They utilize the Indo-Bangladesh border. They utilize the Indo-Myanmar border. They utilize the Indo-Nepal border. And we have it on record that the terrorist groups have been utilizing this to come inside India, then to stay in sleeper cells, and whenever they're woken up by the Pakistan handlers, to create a problem within ourselves. On these borders itself, especially the Indo-Pakistan border, like I said, it is fenced. We have the line of control. Line of control is a funny animal. It has recently, we have demarcated the line of control very, very closely, very, very clearly demarcated the line of control with Pakistan during the Shimla agreement, which of course Pakistan has now abrogated the Shimla agreement, but the line has been very clearly demarcated. At all points where the line has been demarcated, where we have a fence, you have the Pakistan terrorist groups also being helped by the Pakistan army to cross into India. They use rubber ladders, they use plastic equipment, they use the Pakistan army to fire on Indian forces and to ensure that the Indian forces at all times are kept under pressure when the Pakistani infiltrators or the Pakistani terrorists are actually crossing into India. Over the last couple of years, just before Galwan and after Galwan, India mobilized a large number of its forces to move to our northern and northeastern borders to deal with the PLA, which had actually amassed its forces all over these borders. Because we had to mirror image the PLA forces that were along these borders, we had to remove a large number of our forces from the hinterland, and especially the RR forces, Uniform Force, parts of Delta Force, parts of these forces had to be moved to add to the numbers in eastern Ladakh. And as a result, certain areas which we thought were dormant between the India and Pakistan borders, these borders actually got denuded of the troops. And these are the places from where Pakistan has created new terror launch pads in POK and has been able to come through these areas and also to regenerate these problems and reforce India to bring back those forces. Now, could this be a Chinese-Pakistan nexus? I'm certain there is. The Chinese want India to actually continue to be engaged with Pakistan. So all it has to do is that, look, it tells Pakistan, you start the process of creating mayhem here. India will be forced to denude forces from the north and the northeast. And as a result, we will hold the advantage in the north and the northeast because India will no longer be able to mirror image the kind of deployment that we have along there. So you have a Chinese-Pakistan nexus, and now with Bangladesh having gone exactly the opposite way, you have a Bangladesh-Pakistani nexus. Now, while Bangladesh is a country which has suffered which has been hit by Pakistan, which was occupied by Pakistan. Pakistan carried out genocide in Bangladesh, but unfortunately, the current leaders of Bangladesh are the leaders that are actually playing tango with Pakistan. And when they're playing tango, they're also telling the Pakistanis that we will help you cross into India. There are so many small conclaves that exist between India and Bangladesh, from where these Pakistan terrorist groups can be brought in to infiltrate into West Bengal or to infiltrate into Tripura, and from there move slowly onto into Kashmir, from where they create whatever mayhem they have to create. So these are issues, and these are let me sort of put this in perspective. In the Indo-Bangladesh border, there has been a historical migration issues. For generations now, you have these Bangladeshis crossing into India for economic survival. And it is a well-known fact that this migration has been taking place over the last 3 to 4 generations. So this migration, which was actually an economic migration, has also now allowed the terrorists to come in along with them. And that is also going to create a large problem for India, because we have to put greater forces now on the Indo-Bangladesh forces. So there's also, as you're aware, Bangladesh has become, in the last 4 to 5 months, since last August, increasingly radicalized. And they are talking loudly and clearly about the fact that there's a nexus between them and Pakistan, and the Jamaat is actually ruling the streets of Bangladesh. That's really bad news for India, because radicalization is going to create a large problem between us and Bangladesh. We will be forced to bring in more forces, and at the present moment, we don't have these forces. Because our forces have been deployed between the Indo-China border, a large number of these forces are there. And we will have to denude those forces along the Indo-China border to bring them back so as to protect our hinterland and to ensure that we are able to prevent the Pakistanis from coming in from various different areas. These are issues that are important to be known, that Bangladeshi routes are being used by Pakistan operatives. The ISI subversive routes are being, the ISI has interacted and is interacting with our insurgent groups along our northeastern border. That's a well-known fact. It's not something I'm bringing up today. It was well known when it was East Pakistan. It is well known today that ISI has been interacting with the northeastern insurgent groups, with the Bangladeshi groups, to allow them to come in and to allow them to bring weapons and a whole lot of other equipment inimical to India. So these are issues that, we are also aware of how in the past we are aware of the hijack of the Indian Air Force, Indian Airlines plane that happened when the hijack happened from Kathmandu to it was taken and finally taken to Afghanistan. That hijack happened because Nepal also has not been able to protect its forces. Nepal also has a very weak border force, which does not really protect its own border, because they say that India is protecting the border. We don't need to protect it at all. Also because there are weak immigration controls. Also maybe a state policy to create a problem for India. You have an issue where Nepal also might permit Pakistani insurgent, Pakistani terrorist groups to enter Nepal and to get them to enter India. So you have Nepal, which is helping them. You have Burma, the Indian insurgent groups located in Burma or Myanmar that are helping them. You have the entire Jamaat helping the Pakistani operatives to enter India. And you have the Indo-Pakistan border itself, as well as you have the Indo-China border. Now, how do we protect these borders? We have multi-layers. We have the fence. We have RR, or we have companies of the Indian Army or the CAPFs protecting the initial tier. The CAPFs who protect them have a system called border posts. Those border posts have 15 odd men, and they are located every 5 kilometers from each other. Now, if you look at their model of holding these places, 15 men cannot hold 15 kilometers of border or 5 kilometers of the border, because you have to have at least 5 to 7 men to hold that border post, and just 5 to 7 men to patrol that area between the next border post. So that's the way the Indian CAPFs are holding. The Indian Army has companies. The Assam Rifles has companies between the Indo-Myanmar border. The companies, unfortunately, we have only 21 battalions. 21 battalions can only have 21 into 4. Only 82 companies along a 1,776 kilometers of a border. And 82 companies are very, very less for us to hold this area and to coherently actually protect it. So in every point, because of lack of forces, because of lack of strength, because of lack of sensors, we are, though trying our best, we have large holes in our holding of these borders. And these holes or these gaps have been taken advantage of by the Pakistanis, by various other elements that are inimical to India, and as a result of which, despite our intelligence-based operations, despite our force deployment of infrastructure, we are unable to protect our entire area. And these are the issues, sir, that I wanted to bring forth to you, to the people, to everybody listening to this, that border management is an extremely complex situation. You need at least twice to thrice the force that we have along the Indo-Myanmar border, a similar amount along the Indo-Bangladesh border, more forces to hold along the Indo-Pakistan border, as well as you need troops to mirror image the PLA deployment in our north and northeast. And along with all these forces, you also have CI forces that need to hold the hinterland in the northeast states, because we are aware of the kind of insurgencies that are there in the northeast. And because all these forces require troops, we are actually in a situation where we were over the last couple of years trying to denude these forces so that we could improve and increase the kind of equipment and increase the quality of equipment that we would be able to give to our troops. But the forces that are inimical to India are determined not to allow India to do this. And therefore, you will continue to have these small pinpricks, of course, large things like Pahalgam, where we are forced to redeploy troops. At the moment we redeploy troops, we will create a gap somewhere else. So the complexity of border management is an important issue for us to understand, that despite all our hopes, despite all our mandate, despite our use of UAVs, sensors, thermal imaging, border fencing, smart borders are still susceptible. I have personally gone and seen the Israel-Gaza border. I thought it was the best protected border. They had fabulous sensors all over, but we saw that the Hamas could use bulldozers to break those fences. So no amount of actually sensors really can protect you. You will need forces, you need to increase forces. And I would only wish that the powers that we understand the need for more forces so that they can be deployed and counter the infiltration of the Pakistanis or the infiltration of all forces inimical to India. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. It's a complex situation and extremely difficult to keep making excuses.
Thank you very much, Shokin. Ladies and gentlemen, I think he's just given us a glimpse of the entire complexity along Indian borders, the variety of the borders, the special, the peculiar nature of our borders with each of the countries, and the biggest challenge, which is a fallout of all this, that is the challenge of physically manning all this vis-a-vis, utilizing our resources to have a qualitatively better force by cutting down on the quantity. That's a challenge which is likely to remain, and it couldn't have been explained and flagged better. Thank you very much, Shokin.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So next we have Colonel Ram Athavale, ladies and gentlemen, who will be speaking to us on nuclear smuggling, CBRN terrorism, and concerns for India. You may expand it to include anything that you feel is relevant, Colonel Ram Athavale. And before I hand over to him, ladies and gentlemen, he's someone who's very, very special, someone who carries a tremendous amount of combat expertise, which combined with his absolute authority in the NBR's, the nuclear, biological, and chemical domain. So you don't come across many people like that. So we are indeed fortunate to have him talk to us on this. Over to you, Colonel Ramataglu.
Thank you so much, sir. It's a privilege to be talking amongst such exalted speakers, and also my thanks to Indic and Yashish Arya in particular for having invited me to speak in today's seminar. My topic is a little complex, bordering on the technical, and I will try and cover it in three parts. That is, first, the nuclear smuggling part of it. Then we will look at CBRN terrorism. And in the end, what is the Pak nuclear, biological, and chemical scene as of now, and how it impacts security in India. So that is what I am deciding to cover. Just before I start, I'm going to share my presentation. I have a small presentation to cover my topic. So if you permit me, sir, I would like to share my presentation now.
Please, I hope, Yashish, I hope, no, you're presenting yourself, you don't need any assistance from them, so that's okay.
Sir, if sir is unable to present for some technical issues, then we have his presentation. So that,
okay, all right, okay.
Is my presentation visible to all?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
sir, just try to, if you can put it on full screen mode, if we can.
So can you do the slideshow?
I've done that from my side.
No,
Maybe it'll just be coming up on your screens, I think.
All right.
Has it come on full screen?
Not yet, sir. The slideshow hasn't begun yet.
Oh, it shows full screen to me, so maybe I'll try it again. Can you see the presentation now?
I can see the presentation, but it's not in the slideshow.
Yeah, it's not on slideshow, but it can be seen if there is some problem. I think it can be seen. It's quite readable.
So usually the point is that these slides do not move when. So if you are okay with it, can we present on your behalf?
Yeah, you can do that, but I'll have to keep telling you to shift the slide every time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We
manage
just let us know whenever to move the slides. We can do that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. I'll stop sharing just a moment. Yeah, okay. So,
Yasha, sir, is my presentation visible?
Yes, just change your
yeah,
slide.
yeah. Can I go ahead?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So before we go and see what nuclear smuggling has taken place across the world, I would like to just clarify what entails nuclear smuggling? Now, nuclear smuggling can be divided in three different types actually. The first one is where you're talking about smuggling of radioactive materials or nuclear fissile materials. Now, that would entail, having a kind of a casing which would have that material inside because it is radioactive, and a lot of protection and so on for that. And then you would be, moving that package from one place to another. So that would entail moving the nuclear material. The second kind of nuclear smuggling would be where you are looking at a nuclear device as a whole. It could be an improvised nuclear device, or it could be a stolen nuclear device from a nuclear power. So that would be the second type of nuclear smuggling. The third aspect of nuclear smuggling, when we are talking about it, is the smuggling of material which can help in making a nuclear device. So it could be some machine parts, it could be centrifuge parts, it could be, the yellow cake containers by themselves, which could be smuggled, and so on and so forth. So a whole lot of issues, so a whole lot of items which would fall into this purview of nuclear smuggling. Why I wanted to clarify this is because world over, the biggest nuclear smuggling thing which happened was the AQ Khan network in the 70s and 80s, which actually proliferated across the world and ensured nuclear material, centrifuges, the switches for all that being smuggled from one place to another. Can we have the next slide, please? Yeah. So the AQ Khan network, which actually expanded from 70s to 80s to 90s, was started and monitored, controlled by Dr. Abdul Qadir Khan, who was regarded as the father of Pakistan's nuclear program. Now, this gentleman was a scientist of Pakistan who was initially working in Europe. He was working in Belgium, he was working in Germany, he was working in the Netherlands. His primary work at that place was with a company called Urenco, which was the European Uranium Enrichment Company. And he was working with that company, helping them or working with them for developing new technologies for centrifuges, for enrichment of nuclear material, to make them weapon capable. And for that, he was a major part, played a major part with that company. While doing so, he also established contacts with so many other smaller companies across Europe where he could learn about uranium enrichment to make it a fissile level enrichment. And that is the type of technology which he had already got. And he understood, he had manuals, he had been able to collect documents from various companies. He stole, did thefts from various companies, and he created a stockpile of material, of knowledge, of technological manuals, which could lead any country to develop their nuclear weapons program. Now, in 1974, when India carried out the Smiling Buddha nuclear tests in Pokhran, Pakistan woke up and decided to start their own nuclear weapons program. In 1977, they set up their nuclear laboratory at Kahuta, and that is the time when they started working very seriously on developing a nuclear weapon. When AQ Khan learned about this, he decided to come back to Pakistan and help his country in developing a nuclear weapon. Slowly and surely, he rose up in the ranks. He developed his network across the world. He had fake companies which were made and which were used for transferring nuclear material, on transferring machine parts, on switches, on centrifuge parts, and so on. And he shared this to various countries for, of course, a price, in millions and millions of dollars, which was collected for the Pakistan government. Now, this network had spread so far and wide, and the biggest recipients of this network were the countries which I have listed out on the slide. Now, for example, if you take Libya, which as of today does not have a nuclear weapons program, but at that time, Libya had sourced a lot of centrifuges, almost 1.87 tons of uranium hexafluoride, which is the base material for refining it into a fissile material, the uranium-235. And all these were sourced through various shell companies in the Middle East, in Europe, in even companies which were in Pakistan, but with a different name. And they were being used to transport all this material to Libya, to Iran, to North Korea, and so on. Some other countries were also involved in proliferation of these technologies. Even Iran got a whole lot of centrifuge technology from Pakistan. There's a very interesting book by Adrian Levy called Deception. Those of you who would be interested can get that and read it. It gives in detail how AQ Khan went about and got this whole network working, and how various countries managed to develop their nuclear weapons technology. Now, today, what Iran is working on, all the centrifuge technology, the base of that was got from Pakistan. Yeah, next slide, please. Now, with a lot of pressure from various countries, when his network was exposed, and there was British and American intelligence agencies which worked and broke his network, he was finally arrested in 2004. Now, he was questioned by Musharraf, and he was actually kept under house arrest for a long time, because Pakistan was very, very susceptible to prosecuting him at that time. But at the same time, the world pressure was there to prosecute him, to jail him, and to charge him with all that. Whereas Pakistan was looking at him as the father of their nuclear weapons program. So he was kept in a house arrest for a very long time, and after some time his testimony was let go and he was released from his house arrest. Now, this network, the main thing which led this network to proliferate, tells us that a non-state actor can get or can access nuclear technology from a rogue nation very easily. And that is why the world is worried about nuclear proliferation today. Next one, please. The second major thing which happened was the breakup of the USSR. Now, when the USSR broke up, a lot of political changes took place, geopolitical issues came up, and there were a whole lot of new countries which got formed. Now, before the USSR broke up, there were the Soviet nuclear weapons and nuclear laboratories, nuclear material processing units, which were deployed in many countries which were part of the USSR. After the collapse of the USSR, there were primarily 4 countries which retained or inherited this nuclear weapons and nuclear technology. That is Belarus, Kazakhstan, Russia, and Ukraine. Now, 3 countries out of these surrendered their nuclear weapons and they were given back to Russia. So the weapons part went back to Russia, and Russia remained the sole nuclear weapon state in the whole of the erstwhile USSR. And these 3 countries became non-nuclear states. It is rumored that a whole lot of nuclear material, fissile material, went missing. Next one, please. So a large quantity of fissile material in small parts, scattered parts, went missing. It is also rumored that at that time, the Soviet Union had even miniaturized nuclear weapons to kiloton or sub-kiloton level versions, which could be packed in a suitcase. So they were called as suitcase bombs. Now, it is rumored that there were more than 100 of these suitcase bombs at that time, and While Russia claimed to have recovered most of them, there are still some of these which are missing. Now, how many, where are they? Nobody knows. So that brings up a very scary kind of a scenario that, look, there are such small nuclear weapons which can be concealed, which can be carried around in a suitcase, and they are missing. They could be with any terror organization, they could be with a rogue country, or they could be somewhere with one of these nuclear powers. And therefore, that question leads us to believe that terrorist organizations could have access to such kind of weapon systems. Now, many states are said to have secretly collaborated with terrorist organizations for sharing nuclear technology or sharing biological weapon technology or even chemical weapons technology. As late as January 2024, there is a Japanese Yakuza gang leader. It's a mafia gang from Japan. Now, this gang leader was caught and he actually gave out what all he was doing to the investigative agencies. Now, he has been charged for trafficking nuclear materials, including uranium, thorium, plutonium, and such like things. He is also said to have almost 100 odd kgs of yellow cake, which is the base material for refining further into fissile nuclear material. Now, that is the kind of material which is still outside, in the wilderness, in the environment, with many people. And therefore, we need to wake up and get this material safe somewhere in some silos or laboratories or storage premises, suitably tagged, suitably recorded, so that they don't go missing again. And that is very important. And today, the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, is monitoring all nuclear material across the world through the host countries, and they're all being tagged. There are also reports that Myanmar, which is supposed to have been the source of Yakuza gang leaders' nuclear material, Myanmar is also said to be developing nuclear research capabilities, reactor capabilities, and so on. In fact, Russia is said to be helping them set up their first nuclear reactor. But it is said that Myanmar tried to go nuclear much earlier. And a clandestine nuclear weapons program with the help of North Korea has already started in Myanmar. Unconfirmed reports, but if that is true, then it is again a very scary scenario that right next to us on our eastern borders, we may be having a state which is trying to develop a clandestine nuclear weapons capability. Next, please. The IAEA, like I mentioned, has got an incident and tracking database which supports the implementation of the IAEA nuclear security plan. Now, this database covers all kinds of nuclear smuggling or nuclear trading information, illegal nuclear trading information, in 3 groups: Group 1, Group 2, and Group 3. It is the Group 1 which is of concern. And incidents that are or likely to be connected with trafficking or malicious use of nuclear fissile material or in equipment dealing with nuclear weapons, whether it is centrifuges or switches or any other machine parts which are used in nuclear technologies, those come under Group 1. Now, as of 31st December 24, starting from 1993, the total number of confirmed usage in Group 1 itself is 353, which is a huge number. 353 cases have been there where actual nuclear fissile material or materials connected for making a nuclear bomb have been trafficked. It is also known that there is a huge darknet trading mechanism which is functioning. darknet trading mechanism on the internet where you can trade CBRN material is functional. And the world intelligence agencies are very closely monitoring this network, trying to get into these darknet areas to stop such kind of trades. If you see the chart below, I know the numbering may not be very clear, but the last decade has seen a drastic drop in the number of incidents which have happened. On the right-hand side, the last 10 are the last decade incidents. And there has been a drastic drop in that. And that is primarily because the IAEA and host countries which have nuclear material have put in place very stringent norms and monitoring mechanisms, oversight mechanisms to ensure that nuclear material does not go haywire, does not go out of sight and get proliferated. Next, please. Just to give you an idea, within India, these are the type of nuclear radioactive material trafficking which have been caught. Now, if you see on this slide from December 16 till August 24, there have been many instances where nuclear material or purported to be nuclear material, there could be some material which may not be radioactive the way it is, said to be. For example, in a lot of cases, we find material which is said to be radioactive, which is actually maybe uranium-238 or something similar, which is a very dense metal and has been used in many industrial applications. For example, in keels of ships, such material is used because it is very dense and it helps in balancing or stabilizing a ship. It is also have been used in the fins, the tail fins of aircraft to give it the stability and the direction which you want. So such industrial use of such material has also been seen. So availability of such material from industrial sources is possible. But trading material which is fissile, a lot of them have been hoaxes, of course, when they have been caught. I remember there was one case in J&K where they said that there is 2 kgs of highly fissile radioactive material which has been caught. We had got it investigated and we found that it is nothing like that. It is zinc-related gray metal alloy which was there, which was said to be radioactive material, but it was being carried in a normal bag. So obviously it was not radioactive. And but it was being said that they're going to ask for many crores of rupees for exchange of that and give it to investigative agencies and so on. When we checked it out, it was nothing. It was just a zinc alloy which was there. But nevertheless, these kind of incidents raise your hackles that yes, there is a smuggling network, not just in India, but in the complete South Asian subcontinent. There have been cases in Nepal, there have been cases in India, of course, there have been cases in Bangladesh through which such material have crossed. And that actually raises the concern. Next one, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay. So much for nuclear smuggling. Now, let us have a look at CBRN terrorism. Next. Now, CBRN terrorism has been happening across the world. It is not something which is new. The first case of chemical terrorism happened in Japan on 20th of March 1995, when Om Shinriko, a cult group, released sarin gas in the Tokyo metro trains. 5 of them, all in the morning rush hour time. There were 4,000, 5,000 people who had got affected. 14 deaths took place. And this was the first incident of chemical terrorism which happened in the world. There was also the Rajneeshi cult, which had used salmonella in Oregon in US to poison the public so that they do not go and vote next day against a candidate which Rajneesh favored. So that was a bioterrorism which happened in US. There was a case in Kenya when I was there. I was deployed with the EU at that time, the European Union. And we found that there were interned doctors, trained doctors belonging to the Al-Shabaab terror organization affiliated with ISIS, and they were sitting in county pathological labs trying to extract anthrax from animal carcasses, stabilizing the spores in petri dishes to transport them to Europe as terror weapons, as bioterror weapons. Now, imagine in a small lab in some, nondescript government hospital, people are sitting and developing this. Imagine the number of pathological labs which have come up post-COVID in India. Every corner has got a path lab.
Sorry, Colonel Ramatavale, another 3-4 minutes?
Yeah, just that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So such kind of proliferation of chemical, biological material is taking place across the world. We have seen incidents like the Kim Jong-nam murder or the Novichok attacks in UK also. Next, please. This is the slide which elaborates on my previous slide. This thing is the number of incidents which the ISIS has used chlorine and sulfur mustard in Syria. A total of 52 recorded cases of use of chlorine and sulfur mustard have been done by the OPCW as reported by the IHS conflict monitor. Yeah, next please. There have been many other CBRN terror examples. I had highlighted one, which is the UK in 2010, where Dhiren Bharot, a member from the Al-Qaeda terror organization, had actually managed to assemble a dirty bomb. Thankfully, the Scotland Yard got news of that and they raided his place and they caught him with all the documents and material, everything. He was planning to use it in the London tube, the metro. But thankfully he was caught before he could do that. Many other incidents have been there of CBRN terror. Yeah, next please. Okay, let's have a quick look at Pakistan and CBRN weapons. Next. Now, Pakistan's nuclear journey, like I mentioned, started in 1977 with Abdul Qadir Khan having started the Khan laboratories. This program actually proliferated, actually worked with the Chinese, with the North Koreans, and the Muslim world giving the funding. And they established a very credible nuclear program in their country. Today, Pakistan has got a strong strategic plans division which controls their nuclear weapons and their nuclear assets, and a civilian nuclear regulatory authority for looking after their civilian nuclear power plants and so on and so forth. Next, please. The nuclear journey has also led to Pakistan establishing many nuclear power plants for powering the country. They have a total of 6 operating nuclear power plants today, which also uses a whole lot of nuclear material, net capacity of 3,262 megawatts. Next, please. They have many nuclear weapon facilities in Pakistan and a whole range of nuclear capable missiles. General Chauhan and General Rakesh Sharma both mentioned about General Kidwai, who has recently gone on record and said that Pakistan now has a range capability of 0 to 2,500 kilometers. Basically trying to say that we can use nuclear weapons across a range of terrain covering all of India. That is what his message was. And that when he said 0, he mentioned about tactical nuclear weapons, which they could use within their own territory in case of a strike from Indian side. Next, please. Now, biological weapons, Pakistan has signed the BWC and is not set to have a biological weapons program. However, like all other countries, biological laboratories exist, and therefore capabilities in biotechnology dual use continue to be there in Pakistan. They are set to have set up a lab recently with a lot of help from China. The Wuhan lab from China is collaborating with Pakistan to do a whole lot of research on the infectious diseases. Next, please. As far as chemical weapons are concerned, again, there is no credible program which they have. They have signed the Chemical Weapons Convention in 1997, right in the beginning, and they are a responsible, committed member of OPCW. Interestingly, they are also a member of the EU CBRN Centers of Excellence program, which runs across 60 countries across the world. And they have been carrying out a whole lot of workshops with international people on curbing nuclear weapons. So they have got a credible structure in place to ensure there is no proliferation of nuclear weapons taking place. However, all chemical industries, paint industries can easily be converted for dual use to make chemical weapons. What is important to note here that while having deniability, Pakistan could easily lease out this technology, these kind of weapon systems to terrorist organizations to use against us while maintaining total deniability. A quick look, can we just go to the next slide? Yeah. In the end, I would just like to flash this. What are the concerns for India? Yeah. So I'll just take a minute now.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, because we just have barely enough time for the next speaker.
I understand.
Mr.
I understand. Next one. Okay. So these are the concerns for India. The first is faltering or porous strategic control on their nuclear assets. Now, if their nuclear security is compromised, when they are moving nuclear assets from one place to another, or during storage or something like that, if there are pilferages, if there are thefts, or if they are clandestinely given out to terror organizations, or the technology shared with terror organizations, that would be of concern, because then the terror organizations could get hold of such weapons. But the major concern, I would say, is access to CBRN material to the terrorists. For example, clandestine support of the laboratories, research establishments to give chemicals or toxic biological substances to these terror organizations. They are very easy to use. Deployability is very easy. Deniability is also very easy once you have deployed them. You saw what happened in COVID. You couldn't really pinpoint where it has come from, but still it killed billions of people across the world. Now, such kind of subletting of CBRN weapons or CBRN...
I think, can you please wind
yes,
up quickly?
Yes, sir. So the concern for India would, in one line, would be of these kind of weapon systems falling into the hands of terrorists from legitimate Pakistani laboratories or research establishments. And that is what we should be worried about. Thank you so much. I have finished. Okay. I would be ready for questions whenever they come up later.
Thank you very much, Ram Athavale. I think there is so much you told us. Otherwise people tend to think that only the nuclear weapons are what is to be feared. I think there is far more beyond. In fact, the danger is far more from realms outside the nuclear weapons. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a speaker who's an authority, absolute authority, Mr. Neeraj Manhas, on water security and trans-boundary river issues in South Asia. In other words, I don't think we could have had someone better to speak on the geopolitics of rivers in South Asia. Incidentally, the hottest topic that's going around today. Without any further ado, because we are very tight for time, over to you, Mr. Neeraj.
Thank you, sir. It's been a very wonderful listening to all the, my previous presenters. I understand that due to, less time, they were not able to finish it on, they were not able to present their more idea, but I would not taking much time. I would be very much briefly, discussing the water issues, which is also, has currently is in, kind of a very hot topic. But, without, before going into that, I would like to thank Chair and Indic Research Forum for their kind invitation. So now, I am going to discuss on the water issues of Pakistan. As we know that, the water is a very much fundamental resource that sustains life and the agriculture and the industries also. And it is just not about the Pakistan. However, many of the regions are around the world are actually right now facing the water shortages, and specifically in South Asia, among most of the other countries also have been very much effective. And Pakistan is particularly very much experiencing this kind of a water crisis, and which is actually worsening day by day. We could see that. And this country is very much highly relies on Indus River for its water quality, and the situation is becoming very dire because we know that the World Bank has also classified Pakistan as one of our very most water stressed country globally. So now, if I talk about the water availability, it has also crashed down to the 117 cubic meters. It is very much just below the global scarcity threshold of 100 cubic meters. So over 70 years ago, if we were to see, it was around 500 cubic meters. And with the advent of time, we have seen that Pakistan has actually lost 80% of its water security in a lifetime. So now the Pakistan's dependency on Indus River, now it is been increasing day by day. And we know that the approximately 80% of their water supply comes from that single water source. So that becomes the Indus Water Treaty, between India and Pakistan at a very critical for both the nation, and it governs how both the water from the shared river system is distributed, and there are a lot of tensions which are around it. So why this is happening? So first is the climate change. As we know that the climate change is also leading to the melting of Himalayan glaciers, and they are depleting faster than they can replace, and this is actually leading to the fresh water availability. And we have also experienced that due to it, large number of rainfall pattern has also been disturbed. If I just talk about September 2024 between January 2025, there has been a large number of 70% of less rainfall and the snowfall between that region. So we can well imagine that how much the climate change is actually adding to this kind of a problem. Second is the overuse and the mismanagement. So as we know that, in Pakistan, most of the problem are coming with the mismanagement, because the flood irrigation, whenever it is there, and the kind of irrigation they are also using in their farm is also getting misused. It has not been properly managed, and only the 30% of its the water it is only reaches to the crop, and that to the colonial kind of a canals which they are using, it is also leading to a problem. The third problem is population growth. What we saw in 1960, when the population was around 51 million, and now currently it is at 237 million, and the estimate says that by 2050 it is going to be 250 million. So this skyrocketing of this demand of water, and in terms of the water intensive crops are also getting in more and more, but they are not able to supply more water. The final problem is the geopolitical tension, what we saw currently are also witnessing, because the kind of a problem between India and Pakistan, and also the problem with the Afghanistan's dam, is also leading to a lot of uncertainty. So now, with all these problems, the fallout seems to be very much dire. We have also seen that in terms of agriculture, wheat, rice, and other such agriculture food is also getting threatened due to this water security problem, and it is also leading to a problem of the food security. The food prices are also getting soaring, and the inflation, the percentage is currently at around 12 to 15%. So we can see the economy which is dependent on this food and water is also getting impacted due to this the water scarcity. So now if I just talk about the Pakistan's water storage capacity also, it is very much limited and very less than 30 days of demand. When it compared with the other global average, like for example, Egypt, it has a capacity of storing water of more than 700 days. and with India, if we compare, it is around 120 to 200 days. So, all these problems are also need to be seen where water infrastructure is not at all available in Pakistan. Now, within Pakistan itself, there is a kind of a provincial dispute, what we saw in a form of Punjab province, which is an upper riparian, and the Sindh province, which is a lower riparian. Between them also, there is a kind of a problem where, Sindh province always, never, always short of water whenever, Punjab tries to hold the water, and they are actually using it for their own use. And similarly, in the urban areas like Karachi are also very much highly reliable on the costly water tankers. So, and they are also more and more using water in a form of contaminated water. So you can well imagine this Sindh province also, which I just mentioned, this region is also experiencing like 70 to 80% of their soil is also very much, salinized, which becomes very much difficult for their own agriculture productivity also. And we have also seen that women and girls are particularly, they find it very very difficult and very hardship in these areas to sustain and go for their educational access also due to the water. Similarly, if I talk about the two major water reservoirs which are available in Pakistan, first one is Tarbela Dam, which holds up to 73,000 of acre of feet of water. It is also getting reduced. And we have seen that the water level is also getting decreased of 9 feet above the dead level. Secondly, in the Mangla Dam also, we have seen that the water level is also getting depleted, and it is actually threatening the irrigation and the hydropower. Now, coming to the last point, because I don't want to discuss the Indus Water Treaty, we all know what is it. But now coming to the point where what India abstains on the Indus Water Treaty. So as we know that what exactly happened on 23rd of April, and India dropped a bombshell on Pakistan, it suspended the Indus Water Treaty. So it is kind of a move triggered by the Pahalgam terror attack which happened, and our foreign secretary Vikram Misri declared that the treaty is totally going to be abeyance until Pakistan stop the supporting the cross-border terrorism. So why did India act? So firstly, we need to understand that the security. Pakistan attacks like in the past, we have seen in the Uri in 2016, Pulwama in 2019, and now this Pahalgam, attack totally justifies that, why we should, abeyance this Indus Water Treaty. Second is strategic leverage. Because we know that in the western region, which are going directly to the Pakistan, we have a very less limited amount of total water flow which is available to the India, that is 20%, and 80% of the water which flows down to the Pakistan. Third point is that the Indus Water Treaty is considered to be outdated because it was signed in 1960, and seeing it with the 2025, a lot of the condition and the situation have been changed, like in terms of climate change, population, a lot of geomorphological changes have also taken place. So seeing that kind of a thing, India has also provided 5,000 plus of pages of hydrological data also to Pakistan. But still, there has been a lot of acquisitions from Pakistan that we have to face. Now, what are the implications on Pakistan of this IWT if we try to suspend it or if we try to halt it? So we know that, for the Pakistan flood and irrigation planning, this becomes very much important. If we don't share the data, their whole country will be in the flooded like situation. Secondly, the Pakistan agriculture contributes from the water, it is up to 25%. So it can definitely face a lot of erratic water, and it can also threaten to their agriculture in terms of their wheat and rice crops can also potentially get destroyed. Third point is their hydrological plants, which generates 25 of their electricity, could also falter. So that is why it becomes very much important, and it has become hot topic in India and across the world also. Now, but there are some kind of limitations to it, because India's dam are built on a run of a river, like for example Kishan Ganga or the other Rattle Dam which is there, but they do not have any kind of a storage capacity. So, and just to build a water infrastructure where it could also store water, India would require more and more water infrastructure. So that is still a talk where, Pakistan has also reacted to it and calling it as an act of war. But we will have to see, because this is still, changing every day and a lot of new developments are coming. But overall, if I were to say that India's suspension of this IAWT is very bold, very controversial, and very much critically justified, because security is a very much paramount here. Secondly, I see this IWT is very much asymmetrical. Thirdly, the treaty is very much outdated, which was signed in 1960. So it ignores a lot of the challenges which were there at that point of a time. Until now, a lot of changes are there. So I think with that kind of a thing, if there are any questions related to it, I think I'm happy to answer, but I'll stop here without taking any time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neeraj, for that wonderful, and you really kept it brief, but gave us an overview of almost everything that was required. Thank you very much, especially in the context of what is happening. Yashish, how much time do we have?
So honestly speaking, I think we don't have much time left.
All right. I think what I'll do is, as the chair, let me just field one question, and that question is to General Rakesh. Rakesh, how do Pakistan balance, its ability to or capacity to acquire new capacity that you had mentioned, and balance it with their economic constraints?
So, sir, one of the biggest challenges that the Pakistan Army chief had was to balance between China and United States. And, he, with United States, Biden also giving him trouble. They were, geoeconomics versus geopolitics became an issue with him. And he worked hard to balance along with United States so that he could get the funds from IMF and the World Bank, and also maintain the balance between which his predecessor could not do. So there has been a kind of balance being maintained, and he also managed to get some funds across from Middle East, from UAE and from Saudi Arabia. I think what my good guess is that for the Chinese, the best way to keep us tied down is to use the proxy. And whether the Chinese are giving them good stuff or not good stuff. Recently, last week, there was a news item, the Chinese, after this one happened, the Pahalgam, the news item, the Chinese agreed to give him air defense, latest of air defense batteries in the course of next few days. Now, you see, air defense is a very major issue in what response that we're going to give subsequently. So the Chinese play a deep game here. While they don't want to get involved, they keep a pause off. They have been supporting Pakistan in many forms, in especially JF-17s, and now even offer of JF-20s. So there is a build-up which comes from the Chinese largely, and not. Now the Chinese equipment may not be the best, but it adds on to the value for. So in consequent to Balakot, finally it turns out that it was the Chinese AWACS which were supportive of the Pakistani Air Force efforts that caused us little amount of grief and swift retort. So I think the Chinese involvement is tremendous. They have problems with Pakistanis because of the internal politics of Pakistan, but suffice to say, whatever is required is gradually being fed in by the Chinese.
Thank you. So it seems they are totally almost at the mercy of what China may not give at all.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yashish, shall we close?
Yes, sir. If the speakers have any closing remarks.
Anybody who wants to add anything, a minute each.
So I wish to say, sir, that I think the biggest issue that we have today is what Mr. Manhas has covered, the Indian Waters Treaty. We can't go and rely on a 10-year cycle to say that we'll create reservoirs and we'll create canals and we'll create dams. The whole effect of the thing is lost. And I think people who work on water, like he does, Uttam Sinha does, many people who work on water, we must find methodologies to say there is a short-term, middle-term, long-term vision possible to implement the IWT, because otherwise we lose the power behind it. So military options are always on the cards, but military has always get a response also. So Pakistan will respond to whatever we do. But water is an issue which is a Damocles sword. That's why he says it's an act of war. So I look forward to reading your articles to say as to what we should do on issues of water, which are very significant for us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anything, Shokin?
Shokin has called it off, sir.
All right. Colonel Ram, anything?
No, thank you, sir.
Neeraj, anything?
Sir, it was rightly mentioned by General Rakesh that we need a kind of a strategy which tells us about the short term, middle term, and the long term strategy on IWT, because it is again going to be a very hot topic in the coming time. Every day, a lot of new kind of a narrative have been setting up by the Pakistan itself, because they themselves are threatened at the moment. But we also need to counter back in a same way, where we can also strategize our point and our stand, because they said they want to go it into the UN or the international organization, but we also need to see it in how we need to counter them at at this point of a time, because we have had enough from them in form of cross-border terrorism. So I think it is a high time where we should stop Pakistan at this time. And with this kind of a strategy, I think India has rightly moved with strategically that how they can pinpoint Pakistan at a very crucial point where they can stop them. I think I'll stop here.
Thank you very much.
Krishnan sir, you must start keep enjoying the Bangalore weather and leave us on the heat in Delhi.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. Very true. On that note, I think that's a very good note to conclude. And ladies and gentlemen, I must say that, it just shows you the significance that in today's time, you need to have far more options than just going to war. Yes, that war option will always be there. There will be damages that you too will have to take, but then I have no doubt we are in a position to inflict far more than what may come in the form of response. And I'm also I must also highlight the Pakis have more than realized that what is coming their way. That is the reason why they have said it's an act of war. If they have to say that it's an act of war, that just displays or that just tells us the heat that they are already feeling. And I suppose there are short-term measures. One is by the nature itself, the flow is as it is reduced. Secondly, while the storage capacity building may take time, a certain amount of diversion is already being done, I'm aware, and I suppose not to the level, but I in a way, it's good that it's an eye-opener. We will work on all these things with experts like Neeraj and all. And all that it remains for me is to thank General Rakesh. Thank you very much. Thank General Shokin, who's not here. Incidentally, the three of us are Gurkha officers. Colonel Ram, thank you very much. And Neeraj, thanks a lot. And like General Rakesh said, we look forward to reading a lot on the subject and hearing a lot on the subject. I think it's a subject on which there'll be a lot of interest in the coming days. And thanks a lot to Indic Foundation and to you, Yashas, and your team. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. This is
Thank you.
an 18-hour conference for us. So I think we will be compiling this conference report and we'll be sending this to relevant authorities. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
very
everyone.
much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
very much.
Good evening. Bye.
Thanks.
Sir, recording.